The Nature of Reality by Bandra. Welcome to Conversations That Awaken, a podcast where science, philosophy, psychology, mysticism, and direct experience come together to explore life's deepest questions. What is reality? Who are you beyond your thoughts, beliefs, and stories? Is consciousness merely a product of the brain, or is it the very foundation of existence itself? Join us as we journey beyond assumptions, challenge conventional thinking, and investigate the mysteries that have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. This is more than a conversation. It is an invitation to awaken to a deeper understanding of yourself, the universe, and the extraordinary reality we all share. Welcome to Conversations That Awaken.
Right now, human beings are building artificial intelligence that can literally pass the bar exam.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is. We've launched these massive telescopes that can peer billions of years into the past, looking at the very edges of the known universe. We can split atoms, we've mapped the entire human genome, and we can land rovers on Mars with, pinpoint accuracy.
Down to the centimeter.
Exactly. Yet, if you ask the world's most brilliant scientists a seemingly simple question, like, who is the person actually looking through the telescope? They cannot give you a straight answer.
No, they really can't.
We have completely mapped out the mechanics of the distant universe, but we remain basically utterly in the dark about the nature of the mind that's actually observing it.
It really is the defining paradox of our time,
Yeah.
We know more about the external machinery of reality than literally any civilization in history.
Right.
We could explain exactly how a star is born, down to the atomic level, but we are absolutely baffled by the simple fact that we are aware of it.
That we even have the capacity to witness it.
Yes. And during the day, we're all too busy to think about it. But in those quiet moments, maybe lying awake at 2 in the morning, that profound mystery, the sheer weirdness of our own existence, it just demands attention.
It really does keep you up at night. We've got our hands on an exclusive look at the introduction to an upcoming book slated for a 2027 release. It's called The Nature of Reality, and it's written by Bandra.
Which is a fascinating read, by the way.
Totally. What makes his approach so captivating is that he's tackling this age-old question by highlighting the exact reason we haven't solved it yet. Okay, let's unpack this. Because if human beings are smart enough to build quantum computers, why is the nature of our own reality still just a giant blank spot on the map?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Bandra argues it actually comes down to how human knowledge is organized. Essentially, the people looking for the answer, they aren't even speaking the same language.
That is such a crucial starting point. Because over centuries, human inquiry has really fractured into these highly specialized silos.
Mm-hmm.
We divided the search for truth into separate departments, right?
Right.
And now those departments barely even communicate with each other. Think about how we approach reality today. You have science, which is unparalleled at mechanics.
Unbeatable.
Right. It will tell you the mass of a black hole or, the exact speed of light, but it fundamentally struggles to explain the origin of consciousness.
Because you can't put consciousness under a microscope.
Exactly. It's measuring the outside, but completely ignoring the inside.
Right. And then, okay, so you turn to psychology, right? You'd think that would hold the answer to who we actually are.
You would think so.
But psychology is mainly focused on human behavior. It explains our traumas, our habit loops, how our personalities form in childhood. But it doesn't really explain the raw canvas of being itself.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like it explains the painting, but it completely ignores the canvas.
Precisely. So maybe you turn to philosophy. And, philosophy is magnificent at asking the right questions. It deconstructs our logic, challenges our biases, tears down false assumptions.
But it's so theoretical.
Exactly. It is inherently intellectual. It leaves you with these fascinating arguments, but rarely provides a direct experiential answer. Like the text says, you can argue about water all day, but philosophy won't actually give you a drink.
Which usually pushes people toward religion or mysticism, right? But those have their own massive hurdles.
Oh, definitely.
Religion offers beautiful inspiration and a moral compass. But as the text explores, it often becomes trapped in rigid belief systems. It can devolve into dogma, where you are basically asked to blindly accept a historical narrative rather than actually discover the truth for yourself.
Right. It becomes about following rules rather than experiencing reality. And then you have the mystics. Throughout history, individuals who sit in deep contemplation claim that ultimate reality can be directly known.
They actually experience it.
They do. But here's the catch. They universally claim it cannot be described in words. They speak in riddles and poetry, which is deeply, deeply frustrating for the modern evidence-based mind.
I can imagine. Science looks at a mystic and says, if you can't give me rigorous, verifiable data, I just can't take you seriously.
Yeah, they basically just dismiss them completely.
Thinking about these different disciplines, it's like having 5 different world-class experts examining an incredibly complex, sprawling mansion.
I like this.
Right. So the plumber is entirely focused on the pipes. The electrician is only tracing the wiring. The architect is obsessed with the structural load. The interior designer is just looking at the spatial aesthetics. And the historian is off researching the property records.
Right, all in their own little worlds.
Exactly. Each one is an absolute genius in their field. But the crazy part, they absolutely refuse to look at each other's blueprints.
Yeah.
And because of that, none of them actually understands what the house is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that analogy perfectly captures the core issue. The true value of Joe Bandra's approach isn't found in discarding any of these fields.
Right, he's not throwing them out.
Not at all. He isn't saying science is wrong or philosophy is useless. He is pointing out that every single one of these disciplines is profoundly insightful, yet fundamentally incomplete when standing in total isolation.
So you need all the blueprints.
Yes, you actually need the plumber and the architect.
Yeah.
To understand reality, you really need the strict physicist and the silent mystic.
But how does someone practically build a bridge between a strict data-driven physicist and a silent contemplative mystic? Because they feel like polar opposites.
They really do.
To understand how he attempts this synthesis, we really have to look at his own background. Because it's not what you might assume. He didn't, spend his career meditating in a secluded cave somewhere.
Not at all. He actually spent decades working in clinical engineering.
Which is about as physically grounded as you can possibly get.
It is literal life-or-death measurement. In clinical engineering, you are dealing with medical devices, precise calibrations, ventilators, monitoring systems.
Wow, so no room for error.
Exactly. If you are off by a millimeter or a fraction of a volt, someone could get seriously hurt. So for decades, his entire worldview was forged in strict, objective observation. Hard clinical evidence and the scientific method weren't just abstract ideas to him, they were the daily tools of his trade.
He lived and breathed it.
He did. He believed absolutely in a solid, predictable, mechanical universe.
But then he starts looking deeply into quantum mechanics. And this is where that stark, clinical, evidence-based worldview starts to completely fracture. Because, the deeper you look into matter, the less matter there actually is.
Quantum mechanics is famous for completely shattering our everyday common sense. As he explored the physics of the subatomic world, he encountered discoveries that simply didn't fit the clinical engineering model of reality.
Like what, exactly?
Take the nature of physical objects. We perceive a table as solid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the quantum level, it is almost entirely empty space, populated by subatomic particles that aren't even acting like solid little billiard balls.
Right, they act weird.
Very weird. Sometimes they act like physical particles, and sometimes they act like waves of probability.
Let's pause on that, because this is where physics gets genuinely weird. For a guy who calibrates physical machines for a living, what does it mean to realize that the universe at its base layer isn't acting like a machine at all?
Well, it creates immense cognitive dissonance. I mean, imagine your entire career is based on measuring a machine part, and you trust that the part exists in a specific state, whether you are looking at it or not.
Because it's a solid object.
Right. But in quantum physics, there is something called the observer effect. Experiments repeatedly show that the very act of observing or measuring a quantum system actually changes the state of that system. The observer and the observed are somehow entangled.
So wait, the very act of looking changes what you are looking at? That would be completely maddening for an engineer.
Oh, absolutely maddening, but also highly revealing. It forced him to seek out broader perspectives. He leaned heavily on thinkers like Richard Feynman, the legendary physicist who really championed the idea that science is about embracing uncertainty.
Not demanding rigid answers.
Exactly, not demanding rigid, comforting answers. He was also deeply influenced by David Bohm. Bohm was a brilliant theoretical physicist who proposed that underneath the chaotic, seemingly separate objects of our physical world, there is a deeper hidden order. He called it the implicate order.
Okay, how did Bohm describe that? Because implicate order sounds a bit dense.
Yeah, it's a heavy term. Think of a whirlpool in a river. We give the whirlpool a name, we can measure its speed, and it looks like an independent object.
Right, you can point to it.
But it's not. It's just a temporary pattern that the river is doing. Bohm suggested the entire universe is like that river. The stars, the planets, you, me, we are just temporary whirlpools in a deeper, unbroken field of reality.
Okay, so his intellectual mind is expanding. He's reading Feynman, he's absorbing Bohm's theories of a connected universe. But reading about the river and actually swimming in it are two entirely different things.
Completely different.
And this leads to a very specific date detailed in his journey, April 15th, 2020.
Yes. The cognitive dissonance between his rigid engineering background and these expansive quantum realities finally reached a breaking point. But what's crucial here is how it broke.
Right, it wasn't a math equation.
No, he didn't suddenly crack a math equation or develop a brand new intellectual theory. He describes it as the complete collapse of a fundamental misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding.
Yeah. The persistent feeling of being a separate, isolated individual simply dissolved. He says there was no center, no boundary, just an absolute peace, stillness, and a profound sense of unconditional love.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I have to push back a little on behalf of the listener. Wait, so you have a hard science clinical engineer. He spends his life needing measurements and proof. Then one day, he doesn't actually learn new data, but a misunderstanding simply falls away, and suddenly he realizes reality is perfectly whole and undivided.
Yeah.
If reality is fundamentally undivided, why do I feel physical pain when I stub my toe on a coffee table? That table feels completely separate for me. How does an engineer reconcile a mystical experience with the hard, sharp facts of daily life?
That is the essential tension of his work, and it's a really brilliant question. Undivided doesn't mean featureless or not real. When you stub your toe, the pain is incredibly real.
It certainly feels real.
The biological response is completely real. What falls away is the conceptual overlay, the psychological story that there is a permanent, isolated entity called me inside the head who is the victim of a separate, hostile universe outside.
So the illusion isn't the table, the illusion is the boundary we draw between the perceiver and the perceived.
Exactly. What he unpacks is the vast difference between acquiring intellectual data and experiencing a shift in direct realization. In science, we add data to our existing framework.
Like adding bricks to a wall.
Exactly. We build a taller tower of knowledge. But what happened to him wasn't adding a new floor to the tower. It was the realization that the separation between the tower and the sky was an illusion. It is a subtraction, not an addition.
A subtraction. That makes a lot of sense.
He didn't gain a new concept to believe in. A false concept simply dropped away. And from his perspective, this doesn't contradict evidence. It is actually the purest form of direct observation.
Okay, so his mind is blown. His entire operating system has been basically rebooted. But how does he expect us to understand an experience that he admits defies words?
That's the challenge.
Does he actually give us a roadmap, or is he just telling us about a great view we can't see?
No, he does provide a framework. He lays out 6 specific lenses through which any of us can examine reality, bridging those disconnected silos we talked about earlier.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first lens is physics, not as dry math, but physics as a pointer to deep interconnectedness, like quantum entanglement, where particles mirror each other across vast distances instantly.
Right. And the second lens is mathematics, not just, balancing a checkbook, but recognizing the astonishing, almost terrifying order woven into nature.
Yes, the intelligence of it all.
Like the Fibonacci sequence in a sunflower, or the fractal geometry of coastlines. Math suggests the universe isn't a random accident. It has an inherent, profound intelligence.
Exactly. The third is philosophy, used actively to challenge our basic assumptions. It's the tool that asks, is the thought I am having right now actually true, or is it just a habit?
Ooh, that's a tough question to ask yourself.
Very tough. The fourth lens is psychology, and this one is vital. He uses psychology to expose the exact mechanisms our brains use to create the illusion of a separate self.
That's so important to ground this for the listener. Think about a toddler, right? A toddler learns the word mine very early on.
Oh yeah, everything is mine.
Exactly. Psychology shows us how the brain builds this narrative, memory like, I did this, I want that, this happened to me. Over years, that narrative hardens into an identity. Psychology helps us see how the ego is actively constructed by the brain, moment to moment.
Yes, well said. The fifth lens is mysticism, looking at the historical breadcrumbs left by sages across time who all pointed to the same undivided reality, regardless of their culture.
Across completely different centuries and continents.
Exactly. But it's the sixth lens that forms the absolute core of his approach, and that is direct experience.
Because no amount of knowledge can substitute for actually tasting it. Which brings us to one of the most powerful themes of the text. The idea that language itself, the very tool you and I are using to have this conversation right now, is actually one of the greatest obstacles to understanding what reality actually is.
It is a profound obstacle. The text uses a famous maxim: a description of water will never quench thirst.
But it goes deeper than that. Language doesn't just fail to capture reality, it actively distorts it by how it forces us to think. It's like trying to understand a beautiful flowing piece of symphony music, but the only tool you have to analyze it is a pair of scissors.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You just keep cutting the sheet music into individual, separate notes, categorizing them, and then you look around wondering where the melody went. The tool you used to analyze it literally destroyed the flow.
What's fascinating here is the actual mechanics of why language acts like those scissors. Language, by its very grammatical structure, fundamentally fractures reality into subjects and objects.
Right.
In order to even speak a basic sentence, I have to create a separation.
Yeah.
I have to say, I see the tree.
Right. I am the subject. C is the action crossing empty space. And the tree is the object over there. Our grammar practically forces us to build a dualistic world of me in here and everything else out there.
Precisely. But reality itself appears prior to both the subject and the object. The universe doesn't know anything about nouns and verbs.
It just is.
Exactly. It is a single, continuous happening. So when we try to capture the undivided whole of existence, using a tool designed to chop things into separate conceptual pieces, we inevitably end up feeling disconnected and alienated from the world around us.
Think about the listener right now. Maybe you're walking the dog or commuting or doing the dishes. Every single thought running through your head. I need to finish that project. I hope they liked my presentation. What does this mean for me? It's all filtered through that linguistic scissor cut of a separate I.
Always.
We're using words to slice up reality all day long.
And that leads us to the most radical implication of this entire framework.
Yeah.
If language is artificially slicing up reality, what does reality actually look like when we put the scissors down? When we stop dividing the world into me and not me?
We arrive at the undivided whole. Because for a long time, the dominant scientific view has been materialist, that the universe is just dead matter and consciousness is just a random, accidental byproduct that happened because biological brains got complicated enough.
Right, that it's just an emergent property of me.
Exactly. But this text posits the exact opposite. Consciousness isn't an accident. It is fundamental to reality itself.
It is a massive paradigm shift. It proposes that reality is a single, undivided, conscious whole. The universe isn't a giant empty bucket filled with disconnected objects like some stars over there, a few planets here, a tree, a human.
Right.
Rather, the universe is a single underlying principle that is merely appearing as all those different forms. Just like a single ocean appears as millions of different waves.
And what's incredible is that humanity has been trying to name this underlying principle for thousands of years. I mean, the ancient sages of India called it Sanatan Dharma. The Taoists called it the Tao. Christian mystics referred to it as the ground of being.
And returning to his scientific roots, modern physics flirts with this exact same idea, calling it the quantum information field, or the implicate order.
Different silos, different vocabulary.
Exactly, but all pointing their flashlights at the exact same undivided reality.
Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion of Joe Bandra's work. If this is true, if there's only one fundamental reality expressing itself as everything, then the search for meaning, the search for truth, is not a search for something outside of ourselves. The seeker and the sought are the exact same thing. The observer and the observed are not separate.
That is the pivotal shift in identity. The universe is not a massive, cold place that is happening to you. The universe is expressing itself as you.
Wow.
You are not a tiny, separate entity looking out through your eyes at a foreign world. You are the universe, literally looking at itself.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now going about their normal, busy day? What is the ultimate takeaway of this realization? How does knowing this actually change a Tuesday morning?
Well, this raises an important question. What is the ultimate purpose of our curiosity as a species? We build telescopes, we map genomes, we ask these heavy late-night questions.
Yeah.
But perhaps the final realization isn't that we, as little individual humans, finally solve the puzzle of reality. Perhaps the pinnacle realization is that reality is understanding itself through us. Our consciousness is the universe's consciousness. When you look up at a star, it is literally the universe looking at itself, experiencing its own awe.
It completely flips the script on how we view our place in the world. We aren't strangers who just arrived on Earth. We grew out of it like leaves on a tree. We are the very fabric of the place.
It's a beautiful way to see things.
As we wrap up, it's really important to highlight the spirit of this approach. This isn't demanding that you believe in a new religion. It's not asking you to accept a new dogma or blindly trust a set of claims. It is simply an invitation.
A very open invitation.
Yes, an invitation to use those 6 lenses, from physics all the way to psychology, and to directly test your own experience.
It's an invitation to question the absolute reality of that voice in your head. The voice that constantly uses language to tell you that you are isolated, separate, and disconnected from everything around you.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to take with you into your week that grounds this expansive philosophy right into the friction of daily life.
Go for it.
We talked about how language and our minds artificially divide things into me and them. Well, think about the next time you find yourself in a really heated argument with someone. Maybe a driver cuss you off in traffic, or you're clashing with a difficult coworker.
We've all been there.
In that exact moment, the illusion of separation is at its absolute peak. It feels incredibly real. It is completely me defending myself against them. But if what we've explored today is true, if the observer and the observed are not separate, and the universe is just expressing itself as all of us wearing different masks, are you really just arguing with another aspect of yourself?
Man, it certainly changes the dynamic of how we interact with the world and with each other.
It changes everything. From the distant galaxies we map with our telescopes to the quiet, late-night thoughts keeping us awake. Thank you for joining us. Keep exploring, keep putting down the scissors to hear the music, and most importantly, keep questioning everything.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Finding Nevaeh and Body, Mind, and Machine are available on Amazon and Ingram. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep awakening.